as I came up on the hill in the dark, it was one of those really dark nights, like driving into a cave. There was nothing, no moonlight, no stars, just overcast and about midnight. And as I topped the hill in the tall waving grass, I saw this little white cross just barely sticking up over the grass. My headlights caught it out of the kind of corner of my eye. And I thought, that's a strange place for a little white cross to be. And then I topped this hill that was like a roller coaster where it kind of takes your breath away as you come down the hill. And as I started down the hill, the darkness instantly illuminated, and these two bright red lights out of the blackness of the night just boom came right into my view. And I was like, whoa, where did those come from? And then I realized those are brake lights, and they're getting closer by the second. They went from nowhere to suddenly on. And I slid to a stop just feet away from these bright red brake lights. And I realized they were the brake lights of one of those big cargo vans, like the Sprinter vans. Giant. In the middle of the road. In the middle of the night. In the middle of nowhere. And I thought, what is this guy doing? Stopped in the middle of the highway. And as the sound from the wind started coming down and settling, as the noise of the highway began to drift out of my ears, and I could begin to see and hear around me, I noticed off to the left of these brake lights what looked like a strobe light, just a flash of something. And as I looked, I realized they were headlights. They were headlights on the other side of a rust camouflaged freight train in the middle of nowhere. See, as I come over this hill and come to the bottom, there was a train track that ran through the middle of the countryside. And on that train track, the arms didn't exist. Well, they did, but you couldn't see them for the big giant van parked in the middle of the road. So there was nothing reflective facing me. And apparently this train had been so long that the guy in the van decided to turn his engine off and turn his lights off to conserve his battery. So he was sitting there in the middle of the highway, in the middle of the night, with no lights on. And this train clacking away in front of us was camouflaged by the darkness and the rust of the train. There's no way I would have known that train was there. If that van had not suddenly turned his lights on, suddenly lit the night up with those brake lights, I would have plowed into the back of that van on my motorcycle or hit that train, big as daylight. But as I sat there at the bottom of that hill on my motorcycle, waiting for the train to pass, this big hulking van in front of me, the train passing by in front of him, the thought going through my mind was, why is the white cross way back there? And the next thought that went through my mind was, maybe someone lost their life because, like us, sitting at the bottom of this blind hill, waiting on this train to go by, they topped that hill and there was no time to stop. The warning sign of that little white cross wasn't just a memorial to those who had perished on that spot. It was a reminder to the rest of us that danger is ahead. Now, it's one thing to see the little railroad crossing signs. It's another thing to see the highway with the marks in the middle of the road. In the U.S., those are big X's with an R on either side, railroad crossing. Those are warning signs that we should take heed of. And generally, we'll tend to look right and left and see if there's a train close enough that we can't get by it. But when you see that little white cross, what that means is that all of the warning signs in the world have not been enough, and someone has paid the ultimate price for not heeding those warning signs or not being prepared to stop. Today in chapter 11 of Live a More Excellent Life, this video is about discussing the notion that those little white crosses are mentors to us. Now, it's not a mentor in the way of someone sitting down with you and discussing all of the challenges that you're facing and offering solutions and a pathway specifically for you to get past them. But they serve as mentors as a reminder to just go, hey, excuse me, someone else did what you're doing and it didn't work out so well for them. So like the highway signs that tell you when to slow down and when to turn, or when you might be going down the same highway the wrong direction, you're in the wrong lane or a divided highway. When those warning signs begin to give you advance notice that you're about to do something wrong, those little white crosses are reminders that someone else has tried this and failed. Dr. Phil is famous for saying, so how's that working out for you? How is that working out for you? Are you looking at the road signs? Are you following them? See, here's something you got to know. Both success and failure leave clues. Those things that have been done wrong, those skid marks that go off into oblivion on the highway, that guardrail that's been destroyed, those are markers that someone did something horribly wrong here. And it didn't bode well for them. Anytime you see those marks on the highway, and then you also see orange squares painted around them, that usually means that a fatality accident happened on that spot, and the highway crew has had to come back and reenact it to determine exactly who was at fault. Those type of incidences happen in relationships. They happen in careers. They happen in everyday life. And I'm not just talking about a relationship or a career impacted because someone lost their life on the road. Look at some of the signs that have plagued our society and impact our relationships today. I have teenagers. I have 2 teenage boys under the age of 20. I have 2 daughters who are over 20. But I caution them all, and I always have. I don't tolerate play fighting between dating couples. Not even for a second. If I see my son push, shove, tackle, wrestle, roughhouse with his girlfriend, I bring that to a stop quickly. Why? Because it's a little white cross on the side of the road. What it tells me is that the barrier that I believe he should have as a true man, as a gentleman, to protect her at all costs and from everything, has kind of eroded a little bit. And he now sees her as someone that he can treat the same way. Now, that doesn't mean that my wife and I don't get a little playful. But playful and roughhousing are entirely different. We'll tickle each other. We might mock each other in a teasing way. But there will never be a punch to the arm. There will never be a smack to the back of the head. There will never be a push them to the ground and sit on them. And I don't tolerate it in those relationships. Why? Because those are the white crosses of domestic abuse. Those are the warning signs that something is coming, that the barrier that should have been there, that he is her protector, that he is her guardian, that he is there to look out for her, that those have begun to erode. And when I see those signs in the relationships of my children, I have real issues with that. And that, in my opinion, is a barrier that needs to be reminded frequently. I was sitting in a local restaurant, it's been a year or so ago now, and I watched 2 20-somethings come in. They didn't have any rings on, so I don't think they were engaged or anything. So I'm guessing they were either just buddies or they were dating. It did appear that they were dating. I think I saw them kiss a couple of times. But at one point, she kind of shoved him in a joking manner as if to say, stop that. And rather than manning up and admitting, yeah, she caught him off guard, she shoved him a little bit, he turned around and shoved her twice as hard. She stumbled back several feet, bounced off the wall, fell on the floor, and nearly hit the people coming in the door. And I thought, wow, what a drastic overreaction. Obviously, he's physically stronger than her, but does he really need to prove it that way? And then he laughed at her as she fell to the floor, eventually walking over to help her up, but not until he had a chance to laugh thoroughly. That's a little white cross. That's a warning sign of danger coming. That may as well be a red flag going, hello, there's something wrong here. The way he views her is not as a delicate flower. That's a problem. Failure has warning signs. Impending danger has warning signs. And so does success. Here's how you know. When you drive through that neighborhood and every lawn is perfectly kept, One of your questions might be, I wonder if these people even do their own lawn. But either way, here's what you do know. They take great pride in their accomplishments. They don't buy a big fancy house and then just let the grass grow up to the backside. They don't do that. Why? Because you take care of what you've earned. You take great care of what you've invested your heart and soul into, those things that you've worked hard for. When you see a well-kept lawn, even if they're paying someone else to do it, what that tells you is that they have pride of possession. That's a pretty good clue of success. It used to be that if you saw a really nice car, you could presume that as well. But there are a lot of people now who will live in a shanty and drive a really nice car. They'll live in a house that's falling down around them, filled with trash, and drive a really nice car. So that's not as much an indicator anymore. But the way people dress, the way that they talk, the way that they treat others, the type of position that they hold, the accomplishments of their life, their education level, their career path, their career choice, the words they choose to use, all of those are signs of a strong inner character and a diligent working path. And when you see those signs, follow them. Follow them. Now here's something else that I know. When you see someone who has vision, think back to Emmitt Smith. We talked about Emmitt Smith versus Deion Sanders. Deion is much faster, but Emmitt had vision like nobody's business. He didn't need everybody in the field to lay down. He would look at that sea of massive humanity coming at him, and just off to the side, he'd see a little crack of daylight, and he would set his face like flint for that little crack of daylight and run with everything he had. That hole might seem like it's this big, and he would shove himself through it and head for the goal line. He only saw the goal line. And my challenge to you is to see the goal line. That vision that we talked about way back in chapter 1. Get your hands on that vision. You've got to be able to see through the trees, see past the clutter, see past the bad relationships, see past the failed careers, see past the education that you stopped midway. See past those things and see that vision, that goal, that success. And then you've got to look for those people who have made success their pathway. Those people who have accomplished along the way all of the things that you want to accomplish. The ones that you could look at and say, I want to do that. I want to be just like that. I want to have that house and that car and that family and have my education finished and have that career. And then understand this. And it's not 100% true because there are jerks in every walk of life. There are jerks who are homeless. There are jerks who are just barely getting by. There are jerks who are fairly stable. And there are jerks who are multimillionaires. And I've met just about all of them. But the people who tend to find success and keep it are generally people of good, solid character. And what does that mean? That means that not only have they found success, but they understand the struggle. They know what it means to start out and to start over. Here's a good example. You might know the name Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey was a multimillionaire in his early 20s before he was bankrupt. Yep. Millionaire, bankrupt. Bankrupt and broke. In his words, macaroni and cheese broke. That's broke. But now, Dave Ramsey has an empire. And here's the powerful thing about his empire. What he does now is teach other people how he became bankrupt. Not because they want to become bankrupt, but he provides those warning signs, those little white crosses on the side of the road to go, don't go that way. How's that working out for you? It's not. And it's not going to. You need to do it like this. This is how I got rich in the first place. This is what happened that caused me to lose it all. This is how I rebuilt and what I did differently and how I undid what I'd done wrong and how I fixed it. And here's what I know. These tools work for everyone, everywhere, every time on any part of the planet. Because these tools are principles. That's what this entire book is about. There are a lot of people who would look at the things in Live a More Excellent Life and say, well, I'm not sure that'll work for me. You're wrong. It will work for you because it's like the law of gravity. It doesn't care about your religious persuasion. It doesn't care about the economic background that you came from. It doesn't care about your status in life today. The principles that I'm teaching you work for everyone, everywhere, every time on any part of the planet. Because they're principles. They're like the laws of gravity. If you treat people well, things will go well for you. If you act like a jerk most of the time, things will not go well for you. Will jerks get ahead from time to time? Yes, from time to time there will be an exception. But they are the exception. The rule is jerks lose eventually. That's just the way it is. They might gain a lot of money, but they'll lose all their friends. They might build a great empire and they find themselves heartless and without relationships. I'm just telling you. You can't plant jalapenos in your front yard and expect to find roses. The seeds that you plant are going to bear fruit, whatever they are. If it's the seeds of hard work and labor, then you will reap that in the form of success. If you invest enough, plant enough hard work, water and nurture that hard work, then the success that follows that will be the fruit of that labor. It just happens that way every time. It's just the way life works. And if you'll take that to heart and understand how true that is, look at the signs on the side of the road, those little white crosses that say someone died here. Look at those manicured lawns. Look at your boss who's got the new suit on and the nice tie, and they walk with character and they walk with integrity like they always have some place to be. Because they do. But here's what I know about them. If it's integrity and character that got them to that spot, they will not withhold from you the right to know where the treasure is buried. I promise you. Men and women of character and integrity don't look at success as something that they have to gain on their own. They look at it as an opportunity for everyone. They don't say, and they won't say to you, I got my success, good luck to you. What they might say, and you may not like it, is, I just have to be honest. If you continue doing X, you're probably not going to get to here. But if you could get past that, man, you could do anything. How did they know that? All right, so I want to tell you about this little mechanism called a bouncing Betty. Bouncing Betty landmines started being used in late World War II. They went all the way through the Korean War and the Vietnam War. In fact, there are probably still some of them buried in various places all over Europe. But there's a reason that a Humvee, or affectionately known as a Hummer, has tires that are so wide. They match the track width of an M1 tank. And the reason that they do is because the Bouncing Betty is a landmine that's buried in the ground. And when it's buried in the ground, it is designed for the psychology of a troop movement with a forward scout. So the forward scout would go off into the woods or to cross this farmland or to cross this countryside, and the forward scout would be 50 to 100 yards ahead, maybe 50 to 100 feet in some cases, depending on the size of the terrain, ahead of the regular troop. Now this troop is all armed. These guys are ready to fight. They're going off to war. They're chasing the enemy down. And as they wander through there, this Bouncing Betty landmine, unlike the average landmine, a standard claymore that you step on and boom, that's why the scout was out there. The scout was out there to see, do I get shot by a sniper? If he drops, the rest of the troop stops to protect themselves. He's their warning sign. He knows that. He's got a little different training to look for things, to look out for the warning signs, to scour the ground for landmines. And so he would go out ahead of the troop to protect them, to give his life for them, to find the landmines, the snipers, the enemies that are encamped and waiting to sabotage them, to ambush them. But the Bouncing Betty wouldn't blow up when you stepped on it. And that's one of the challenges that we have in our life. See, we often don't see the damage done by play fighting in our relationship. We don't see right away the damage done by our explosive anger. We don't see the damage done when we neglect paying those bills for a couple of months. We don't see the damage right away. because it's more like a bouncing Betty. Here's what a bouncing Betty would do. That troop movement would be coming along, and the scout would step on the landmine, and the landmine would wait 10, 20, 30 seconds. And then it would jump up out of the air, spin in a circle as it exploded, and throw metal BBs and shrapnel for about 150 feet around it. It literally had the power to cut a man in half. But it almost never detonated on the person who stepped on it. It always hurt the people behind him. The very mechanism of having a scout going out in front of you so that someone discovers the dangers and warns you in advance was defeated by the delay of the bouncing Betty. One man described it this way. He was a medic, I believe in the Vietnam War. He said, quote, this is on page 134 of the book, he said, when you trip the Betty, this very unique landmine, it does not detonate until you step off. Then it bounces up about 3 feet in the air behind you, blowing you in half at the midsection. Your bottom half will be strudel, but your top half will still be alive. They were used in Vietnam. They used tanks to clear out these mines, and the Hummers would follow while carrying personnel. This is why the Hummer and the Humvee are made so wide, so they can drive into the tracks that the M1 tank made, because there may still be active landmines in the center. Retired Army medic comment about the bouncing Betty. We'll talk more about the bouncing Betty in tool number 11. There are things that are going on in your life right now, mistakes that you're making, that will eventually be marked by a little white cross. Maybe not your death, but the death of a career, the death of a relationship, an education process cut short. And a lot of those have to do with the bouncing Bettys that were stepped on before you. A lot of those have to do with not reading the warning signs of other people who have failed, or asking for help from those who have succeeded. Most people who have found success have the character to also hand that success away. They will hand you the ideas. Now, some are going to charge you for it. Some will do it for lunch. Some will do it because they look at you as a valuable investment. That if they mentor you, the fruit of that is going to be worth investing in. Maybe it's for the company. Maybe it's for a friendship. Maybe they just look at it and go, you're one of those people that if I pour into you, if I pour myself into you, the success of you will allow me to feel even better. And that's all I want. I want to see you succeed, and that's it. And trust me, there are hundreds of thousands of those people in this world whose success brings them gratitude. And like we talked about before, when you're struggling the hardest, take time to send a thank you card. You won't believe how that thank you card will change the way you view the world and how the world views you. I'm telling you, it's a big, big deal. And people who have come from bankruptcy to multimillionaires not only know the path, not only have some of those signs already figured out, but they want to see you succeed as well. They really do. It's in their heart. It's their character that they don't want success to be selfish. Now, I'm going to tell you this too, and I've come by this the hard way. Everybody who visits my website says you give away way too much information. It is my heart to give away everything that I've been given so that as many people as possible can find the way from where I was to where I'm headed and not live where I was. There are a lot of people who live the life that I did with angry outbursts and horrible relationships and not finding success in anything that I did. There are a lot of people that are still there, but it's my heart to see them rise up. And one of the challenges that I face is that I give away so much, there's not a whole lot of revenue left to be generated by it. I think that'll probably switch one day, but here's one thing that I have learned for certain. And it applies directly to these signs, to these roadmaps, to these treasure maps, especially to asking someone else to give you advice. I'm going to explain this with a really quick story and then the revelation that came to it as a result. I went to a conference, and it's been 5 or 6 years ago now. It was a gathering for DJs. There were probably 150, maybe 200 DJs there. I sat in the audience and listened to a guy at the front of the room do a presentation. As he did his presentation, I was really kind of enthralled with the way he did it. We don't have the same kind of communication style. I didn't know that then. I just knew I like what he's doing, and I really feel this urge, this tug to be a motivational speaker, to be in the front of the room, to be communicating to people. It's always been a passion of mine all of my life. And so when the speaking part was over, and we had, my wife won a book that he was giving away during his speaking part, and then we invested a significant amount of money in some of the materials that he had as well. I went to him and I said, would you teach me to do what you do? I want to do what you do. And he said to me, I want you to go home tonight. Don't send me an email. I don't read emails. Get out a pen and a piece of paper and write me 5 pages of information about you. And in that 5 pages, tell me why I should waste my time or invest my time in you. That's all he said. And as I left the room, I turned to my wife. I said, that is the silliest thing I've ever heard. He didn't say no, but I guess he thinks I'm in kindergarten or something. He wants me to go home and write a 5-page report for him on why he should invest in me. And I never wrote that report. To this day, I haven't written that report. But I do now understand the purpose of that exercise. See, it wasn't about the report. The odds are, if that letter had landed in his mailbox, he would have opened it, looked at it, glanced at it to see if it was 5 pages of nonsense or 5 pages of true communication, and then picked up the phone and called. I'm just guessing. Brian, if you're watching, Brian Dodge, if you're watching, feel free to let me know how you would have responded to that. But here's what I know for a fact. That 5-page report had nothing to do with the 5-page report. It had everything to do with knowing if the time he would have invested in me as a protege would have been wasted or invested. See, as a leadership coach myself now, on a regular basis, I get requests via Facebook or requests via email, or someone will stop me in the street, or they'll call me on the phone and say, can I buy you lunch? Will you coach me on blah, blah, blah? And on a regular basis, I have to make the decision. Do I have time to pour into this person to see them succeed? And I know, like the people that I'm talking about here, the white crosses versus the manicured lawns, where you see warning signs of failure or follow signs of success. Will you heed those warnings? These people who have found success have found it by being productive in their life and pouring into people who want to take and take and take and take and never give back, or take and take and take and take and never change, or take and take and take and take and then blame you for their failures. People with manicured lawns don't have time for that nonsense. What Brian Dodge was saying when he said, go home and write this 5-page letter, was not, I refuse to help you. Was not, you're not worthy of my time. It was, I want to know whether I'm going to be investing or wasting my time in you. So here's the strongest caution and warning that I can give you. The greatest tool of a good coach or mentor is a gauntlet. The greatest tool of a good coach or mentor is a gauntlet. He is going to put you through, or she is going to put you through the ringer before they give you the gold. They want to see if you have the character to handle success. Because success, financial success, relational success, emotional success, and intellectual success is a weapon. If you don't believe me, look at the men who have massive amounts of wealth, who are manipulating the political process, even just in the United States. They're doing it in countries all over the world. People with political power, people with massive amounts of influence, people with massive amounts of money are manipulating entire societies because they don't have the character to do the right thing. Men and women of character, who have also become men and women of success, know that. And they don't want to put the tool and the weapon of success in the hands of someone who doesn't have the character to move forward. If you haven't worked out your anger issues, Don't expect a mentor to invest deeply in you. If you haven't learned to change the words that you use and the way that you speak to people and to yourself, don't expect them to invest deeply in you. Yes, success leaves clues, and it's easy to follow the roadmap, to do the things that they've done. Anybody in the world will sell you the ideas that have made them wealthy. But if you want a mentor who's going to walk with you step by step to help you develop your character and develop a process that will find you in a place of great success and deep influence, you better be willing to pay the price, because it's not going to be easy. Success is a buried treasure. That's a powerful thing to know for two reasons. Number one, it's buried to hide it, so not everyone stumbles across it by accident and uses the weapon and the influence of success to do bad. It's also buried, though, because buried things don't move. What I mean by that is, when you find out where the road marks are to get you to success, you can count on it still being there when you arrive, because it's not going anywhere. It's much like the obstacles in your life. I know for a fact that if I had topped that hill at 70 miles an hour, I didn't have to worry about that train coming up the hill at me. Why? Because trains don't do that. Trains follow the track in the direction they're on. They don't have a choice. They can't just turn in the middle of nowhere unless they derail, and then you've got a bigger disaster than that. But that obstacle of that train in the middle of the highway in the middle of the night, that train was going nowhere. And if I wasn't moving, that train and I would have never crossed paths. It was because there was movement in my life that I found the obstacle. And the same is true of your success. It is a buried treasure. It's buried so no one steals it, but it's buried because it's waiting on you to get there. And if you're not willing to pay the price necessary to develop character, when you get there, you won't be able to get it out of the ground. And the odds that you're going to get there are slightly diminished more every day by character failures than by anything else. You may have the roadmap. You may have bought the latest book that has all the success ideas in it. But if your character doesn't develop along the way, when you get there, the treasure is going to do you more harm than good. And if you listen to people like John Maxwell, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, they've all said it. It's a powerful truth that I want you to get your hands on right now, especially in this chapter. Many people have what they would call, and John Maxwell affectionately calls it, destination disease. They look down the road at that treasure that's buried and they go, that's what I want. I want $1 million in my savings account. I want a new house. I want a boat. I want a place in the Cayman Islands. That's what I want. When I get that, I know I'll be successful. But when they get there, they realize, I can't handle this kind of money. Look how many NFL and NBA players come out of college, make multiple millions of dollars, and when they're done in their careers, they're broke. And look how many of them get into substance abuse problems because they have so much money, they don't know what to do with it. It's because they arrived at the destination of their success, but they didn't take character with them. Trust me when I say, it's not about the destination. It's about the character and the person that you become along the way. Destination disease says, I believe that I'll be this ideal person when I get to that spot. But here's the hard truth. If you don't become the ideal person on the way to that spot, if you don't become the ideal person when you get your success, success will not make you an ideal person. You'll be a bad person with a lot of money. And nobody really wants that. Just look at Gotham City, right? All right. Questions at the end of the chapter are challenging questions for you to get better. These are on page 138 in the book. Looking at the white crosses in your own life, what are some of the warning signs that you've ignored? I talked in previous chapters about decisions that I have to make, that I still wrestle with every day. I see a pecan pie. Man, I'm tempted to eat that pecan pie. I really want to. Do I need to lose weight? Yes. Should I be eating pecan pie? No. That doesn't seem like a hard decision. But the white crosses in my life are the number of people in my family who have died because of diabetes, and the number of people who still struggle with it. Those are pretty significant white crosses. Someone has lost their life by making the wrong decisions. That should encourage you to make the right decisions. What white crosses have you ignored? Did you heed the warning signs, or did you just zoom right past them? I want you to write answers in there. Write these questions down if you're just watching the video. If you haven't bought the book yet, just write these answers down on a piece of paper. Did you heed the warning signs? Can you look back in your life at the things that looked like train wrecks, the play fighting that never seemed to stop, but it just got worse and worse? The few drinks out with dinner became long nights drunk? Those are warning signs. Did you heed them or just zoom right past? What impact has ignoring those signs made in your life? Do you have broken relationships? Do you have DUIs? Do you have arrest records because you've made the same bad decision over and over and over and over and over and over and over again? Are you beginning to see the impact and the results, the negative consequences of those choices? Maybe it's time for a change. Who are the people that you allow to speak into your life? We all have people around us who chatter all the time. Everybody does. And we have some people that when they speak into our lives, the things that they say encourage us and build us up and help us become better people. And then we have those people that everything that comes out of their mouth is meant to destroy, to demean, to hurt, to wound, to break us. Who are those people in your life? Maybe you need to make 2 lists and ask yourself, do I need to keep listening to this person? Are they truly giving me good road signs to point me towards success? Or are these warning signs of a bad thing coming? Who are the people whose life you would like to learn from? I'm telling you, if you've got the character and the tenacity and the willingness to go to someone and go, will you teach me this? They may put you through the gauntlet because that's what a good coach or mentor will do. But ultimately, that question will be rewarded with good answers. John Maxwell talks about how in his early 20s, when he was a young leader, he would give what was then 20 to 30% of his paycheck, drive halfway across the country to sit down with other men in his industry and ask them questions for an hour over lunch. In his own testimony, he said there are times that I would sacrifice for the gas and the money to give them when I got there, to the extent that I couldn't eat on the whole trip. I wouldn't stop for lunch on the way. I wouldn't eat lunch with them when we met. I would stay in my car overnight to pay the bill so that I could give them what I promised them. And it meant no place to stay in a hotel and no food. But I made the trip and I paid the price and I got the information that I wanted, because having that information was worth more to me than the immediate luxuries. Are you willing to sacrifice current comforts for future advice? What if you had Apple stock that you bought at $10 a share when it was $10 a share? What's it worth now? $1,000? Would you have given up $100 worth of cash money for $10 stock pieces that would now not be $1,000 worth, but $10,000 worth? That's a big difference, wouldn't you say? But the opportunities to do that are going to require some sacrifice. Who are those people that you would look at and go, I want to learn to do what you do? And are you willing to surrender yourself, submit yourself to them, make the sacrifices, and pay the price to do that? What roadmap will you leave behind? As you've gone through your life up to this point, if you had to make a list of white crosses and future signs for children, for nieces and nephews, for cousins, for friends, for coworkers, for employees, if you had to leave a map behind, what would that look like? Where would you point them? What things would you caution them about? Remember, I told you, people who find success without character will lose both their character and their success. Destination disease. If you get there without the character, when you get there, you don't become the person. You become the person that you want to be along the way. Will you leave a roadmap for those coming behind you that they can look at and go, I want to be just like that. I want to model what you've done. Will you mentor me to be what you've accomplished? I hope the answer is yes. And I hope you can list those white crosses and those forward-moving signs that will point people in the directions that they need to go, both the ones they need to avoid and the ones they need to accomplish. Because as you do that, you'll find yourself well on the way to living a more excellent life. I am J Loren Norris, and you've been watching Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.